To say She-Hulk was meta is a bit of an understatement. In a show that was mostly Easter eggs, these are the ones you probably missed. The second episode of She-Hulk Attorney at Law sees Jennifer unceremoniously fired after the courtroom fight with Titania disrupts her trial and turns her into a media sensation. After a disappointing and humiliating job search, Jennifer is surprised when her former courtroom rival Holden Holloway personally hires her for the new superhuman law division at his firm, GLK&H. GLK&H stands for Goodman, Lieber, Kurtzberg, and Holloway. While Holloway is already present in the series as a recurring supporting character, the names of the firm's other three co-founders have deep ties to the golden age of Marvel. Martin Goodman was the original publisher of Timely Comics, which later became known as Marvel, and the first ever issue of Marvel Comics in 1939. Lieber and Kurtzberg are the birth names of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, who, under their more famous pen names, co-created the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, Black Panther, and the Incredible Hulk, among others. First appearing in Dan Slott and Juan Babio's She-Hulk #1 in 2004, GLK&H is a significant part of She-Hulk's publishing history, and the perfect firm to handle the increasingly offbeat world of superhuman law in the MCU. 20th Century Fox's X-Men film series was the first major superhero franchise of the 21st century, changing the trajectory of cinematic blockbusters forever. The X-Men saga featured Hugh Jackman in the iconic role of Wolverine, a mutant superhero sporting a healing factor, 6 adamantium claws, and a berserker rage. Though Wolverine is one of Marvel's most popular heroes, the Fox X-Men films were not produced by Marvel Studios, meaning they exist outside the MCU. When Disney acquired 20th Century Fox in 2019, fans began to speculate about how and when the Marvel Cinematic Universe would finally incorporate the X-Men. That speculation increased in 2022 after Ms. Marvel revealed Kamala Khan to be the first confirmed mutant in the MCU.
Kamala, there's something different in your genes. Like a mutation.
On the heels of that bombshell, the latest Easter egg hinting at the presence of mutants in the MCU is on She-Hulk's computer in episode 2 of her Disney Plus show. Blink and you'll miss an internet headline wedged between an ad for Iron Man-themed sneakers and an article about the giant Celestial sticking out of the ocean. Man fights with metal claws and bar brawl. In Marvel Comics, metal claws and bar brawls usually point to one man. And the 2000 X-Men film even features Wolverine unleashing his claws on rowdy bar patrons in an early scene. She-Hulk is a fitting spot for Wolverine's first mention in the MCU. He made his debut in 1974's Incredible Hulk #181. After an awkward family dinner in episode 2, Jennifer has a much-needed drink at Legalese, a bar frequented by her fellow lawyers. An episode of the 1990s comedy-drama series Ally McBeal plays on the television above the bar, with Callista Flockhart as the show's namesake briefly appearing on screen. Premiering on Fox in 1997, Ally McBeal was a popular series about a Boston-based lawyer and her complicated personal and professional life. The show balanced courtroom drama with colorful fantasy sequences, including a famous scene where Ally can't stop seeing a CGI baby, a manifestation of her ticking biological clock. She-Hulk director Kat Coiro has spoken a variety about her show sharing a vibe with Ally McBeal, noting that it played with the law firm genre and turned it on its head and made it very feminine. Ally McBeal actually has another connection to the MCU. In the 4th season, Robert Downey Jr. joined the cast as Ally's love interest, Larry Paul. He would go on to win a Golden Globe for his performance before being written off the show. Since Ally McBeal exists in the MCU, there must be an actor in that universe with an uncanny resemblance to Tony Stark. 2022's Thor: Love and Thunder reintroduces audiences to New Asgard, the city in Norway that has become a second home for surviving Asgardians and a colorful tourist spot for residents of the MCU. But what do the resettled Asgardians do for fun if they aren't part of a memorable acting troupe or going on cosmic adventures with Thor and Valkyrie? She-Hulk Episode 3 gives us the answer in Runa, a mischievous light elf and displaced Asgardian who's being sued by Jennifer's obnoxious former co-worker, Dennis Bukowski. Light elves reside in Alfheim, one of the 9 realms. Thor mentions Alfheim by name in his original 2011 film.
You, what realm is this? Alfheim? Dornheim?
New Mexico?
But neither the land nor its residents had actually appeared on screen until She-Hulk Attorney at Law. A normal amount of rage wastes no time in explaining how Jennifer Walters gained superpowers in the MCU, showing audiences the dramatic car crash that led to Jennifer cross-contaminating her blood with Bruce's. In Episode 3, Jennifer exits the maximum security prison housing Tim Ross Emil Blonsky, and is surrounded by reporters covering Blonsky's temporary escape. One journalist asks a very specific and inaccurate question.
Is there any truth to the rumors you got your powers from a mafia hit gone wrong?
This line is a direct nod to She-Hulk's very different origin story in the Savage She-Hulk #1, in which her blood transfusion happens under different circumstances. In the comic book, Jennifer and Bruce reunite after many years during Jennifer's ongoing investigation into the crime boss Nick Trask, and Bruce is a witness when Trask's hitmen shoot Jennifer in the back. Thinking on his feet, Bruce gives her the transfusion to save her life, and Jennifer becomes She-Hulk for the first time when Trask's men break into her hospital room to finish the job. On top of obviously famous clients like Megan Thee Stallion, Jennifer's day job also puts the cases Kraft v. Sewell and Lee v. Byrne on her to-do list, name-dropping 4 comic book creators who have contributed to She-Hulk's mighty Marvel mythos over the years. Writer David Anthony Kraft penned all but a single issue of Jennifer's first solo series, The Savage She-Hulk, from 1980 to 82. Meanwhile, Charles Sewell, a comic book author and real-life attorney, wrote a 2014-2015 She-Hulk series. The legendary Stan Lee co-created She-Hulk and wrote the first issue of The Savage She-Hulk, and John Byrne has written and drawn multiple books featuring She-Hulk, including her tenure on the Fantastic Four and several issues of the 1989 to 1994 The Sensational She-Hulk series. In fact, he's the writer who first had She-Hulk break the fourth wall, with Deadpool famously following suit so many years later. With clients like these, it's no wonder Jennifer is so busy. They say clothes make the man, but what about superheroes? She-Hulk Episode 5, Mean Green and Straight Poured Into These Jeans, introduces Luke Jacobson, a Los Angeles fashion designer with a sharp eye and sharper tongue for superhero costumes. Working in a private studio for his very exclusive clientele, Luke agrees to design new suits for She-Hulk, only after being assured that Bruce Banner's cousin is a future Avenger herself.
By the way, we told him you're an Avenger. What?
The Marvel Universe has a few famous fashion designers in its ranks, including Janet Van Dyne. Still, Luke Jacobson is one of the more obscure Marvel characters to make the leap from page to screen, with only a handful of comic appearances since his creation in 1986. Debuting in Dakota North #1 by Martha Tomasis and Tony Salmons, Luke hires a glamorous, globe-trotting private investigator for protection. Dakota North was canceled after only 5 issues, but has since become a cult series, and it ended with Luke developing a fashion line inspired by the action heroine. She-Hulk Episode 5 concludes with the exciting reveal that Luke is the designer of the yellow and red Daredevil costume seen in promotional materials. In Marvel's Daredevil series, ex-con armorer Melvin Potter designed Matt Murdock's costume. However, in Season 3, Melvin was last seen being arrested by the FBI, which could explain Daredevil's need for a new costume designer. Every episode of She-Hulk Attorney at Law finishes with the credits rolling over courtroom sketch-inspired illustrations by Kagan McLeod. These stylish and funny credit sequences have a few images unique to the episode's plot, and Episode 5 includes a sketch with enough visual Easter eggs to fill a walk-in closet. That drawing in question features Nikki and Pug's quest for designer superhero clothing after Pug recruits Nikki to help him score a limited edition pair of Iron Man 3 sneakers. The Iron Man 3s were advertised in Episode 2, and during the end credits to Episode 5, Pug finally shows them off in front of his collection of superhero-themed sneakers. MCU fans will quickly recognize sneaker designs based on familiar heroes like Captain Marvel, Hawkeye, Black Panther, and Moon Knight. However, Pug also has sneakers for heroes scheduled to appear in the MCU, like winged shoes for Namor, played by Tenoch Huerta in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, as well as orange Rocky sneakers reminiscent of The Thing, who fans hope to see in Marvel's 2025 Fantastic Four film. There's even a nod to the infamous Green Goblin. X-Men fans eager for any and all signs of the mutants joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe will also be surprised to see shoes referencing Deadpool, Cyclops, and Cable, 3 characters featured in the Fox X-Men films that exist outside the MCU. She-Hulk Attorney at Law Episode 5 ends with a cliffhanger teasing the much-anticipated arrival of Daredevil to the show. While the Man Without Fear doesn't appear in Episode 6, Just Jen features the MCU debut of a classic superhero who once led his own Avengers team. Unfortunately, that team was the Great Lakes Avengers. Craig Hollis, alias Mr. Immortal, is a new client for Mallory Book and Nikki Ramos at GLK&H. True to his name, Mr. Immortal cannot die, though he has faked his death several times to escape his numerous marriages.
I die, but only for a little. Kinda die.
Created by John Byrne in the 1986 comic West Coast Avengers number 46, Mr. Immortal is Homo Supreme, neither human nor mutant, but someone who has evolved beyond death. Wanting to use his superpowers for good, he formed the Great Lakes Avengers team with Z-list superheroes Doorman, Big Bertha, Dinosaur, and Flatman, albeit without approval from any other active Avengers teams. Though Craig Hollis on She-Hulk is flippant about his immortality, in the comics, Mr. Immortal hates outliving everyone he loves. In the conclusion of 2004's GLA miniseries, the cosmic entity Death Urge tells Hollis that his destiny is to be the last being alive at the end of the universe, so that he will learn the grand secret that will reveal itself at the end of all things. Immortal Hulk number 24 depicts a grim possible future where Mr. Immortal finally dies at the hands of a possessed Bruce Banner. As Mallory and Nikki talk to Mr. Immortal's exes in Just Jen, one mentions that she learned the truth about her husband's immortality when a video on the website Intelligentsia showed him regenerating after a car accident. Mallory remarks that the site is for hateful man babies, and later she and Nikki make a dark discovery when they register for an account. A content aggregator site, Intelligentsia hosts a Cancel She-Hulk page that posts misogynistic memes and death threats against Jennifer. In the final moments of the episode, Intelligentsia member Hulk King seems poised to make those threats a reality. The word Intelligentsia has an ominous ring for longtime Hulk fans. It was a name taken by a collective of evil super geniuses at first assembled in Fall of the Hulk's Alpha No. 1 in 2009. Consisting of the leader, Dr. Doom, the Mad Thinker, and MODOK, among other villains, the Intelligentsia sought to gather lost arcane knowledge, such as secrets from the Library of Alexandria hidden in Wakanda, Atlantis, and the Eternal City of Olympia. The Intelligentsia would later be revealed as the minds behind several major events in the MCU, such as the coming of the Beyonder and the creation of the Red Hulk. She-Hulk commits to a potent bit of social satire by reimagining the self-proclaimed group of evil geniuses as a site for the internet's most hateful trolls. She-Hulk Attorney-at-Law Episode 7 The Retreat introduces a cavalcade of colorful new characters pulled from some of the most obscure back issues of Marvel Comics. When Emil Blonsky's power inhibitor goes on the fritz, Jennifer visits his secluded Summer Twilight's retreat to be sure he's not violating his parole as the Abomination. There, Jennifer gets a rude surprise when the superhuman Man-Bull damages her car and forces She-Hulk to take the Man-Bull by the horns. Man-Bull was created as a villain for another horned-headed Marvel character, first appearing in 1971's Daredevil No. 78. In The Retreat, Man-Bull tells She-Hulk that he was a weird lab experiment, which is true to his comic book origins. William Torrens was a career criminal working for an evil scientist when he was injected with a serum that mutated him into a rampaging half-man, half-bull. Frequently in and out of prison, Man-Bull has tussled with heroes like the Hulk, Black Widow, and Spider-Woman over the years. The 2005 comic Spider-Man Unlimited No. 12 shows Man-Bull trying to get a grip on his anger issues in the villain's anonymous support group, which appears to have been unsuccessful. While the Man-Bull on She-Hulk carries a grudge against Águila for looking like a matador, in the comics, Man-Bull actually teams up with a fellow D-list villain named the Matador. El Águila, Spanish for the eagle as symbolized on his chest, makes his first appearance in Episode 7. Unlike most of the new characters introduced in Episode 7, El Águila is not a supervillain. He's a self-described swashbuckler in the vein of Robin Hood and Zorro.
And before you make assumptions, no, I am not a matador.
Alejandro Montoya debuted in Power Man and Iron Fist No. 58. A mutant with the power to channel bioelectricity through his sword, El Águila became a masked vigilante on the streets of New York City, targeting drug dealers and slumlords and becoming a youth hero. As the heroes for hire, Power Man and Iron Fist were employed to bring El Águila to justice, but after a crisis of conscience, they teamed up with him instead. El Águila became a recurring character in Power Man and Iron Fist, but made few appearances after that, and he was depowered by Scarlet Witch during the Decimation event. In The Retreat, El Águila wields his bioelectric sword, though it's unclear if he's still a mutant in the MCU. Whether he's a mutant or not, El Águila is one of the most surprising characters the MCU could have ever introduced. Jennifer meets Porcupine when she abruptly crashes Emil Blonsky's Super Being support group meeting. Outfitted head to toe in his massive quilled costume, Porcupine shows his face to the group for the first time in a moment of vulnerability, though they are repulsed by the smell.
Just leave the suit on and until we can get it dry cleaned.
In Marvel Comics, there are two characters who have worn the Porcupine armor. The first was scientist Alexander Gentry, who designed the suit for the United States Army but used it for his own nefarious purposes. He first appeared in 1963's Tales to Astonish No. 48, battling Ant-Man and the Wasp. The second Porcupine, Roger Gawking, debuted in 2006's Daughters of the Dragon No. 3 in a redesigned suit. Roger later reformed and became the nanny for Spider-Woman's baby son. The Porcupine from the episode is remarkably faithful to artist Don Heck's original design. His name isn't revealed, but he's probably Alexander Gentry. Gentry offered to sell his suit to the Avengers in exchange for helping Captain America infiltrate the evil Serpent Society, only to be fatally impaled on one of his own quills. He came back, though, and had an encounter with She-Hulk in the sensational She-Hulk No. 59, as a character witness for a trial. When the fourth wall-breaking She-Hulk points out that he's supposed to be deceased, Porcupine realizes that she's right and suddenly drops dead. Near the end of Episode 7, Jennifer leaves Blonsky's retreat in the tow truck that has finally come to claim her damaged Prius. The truck company Slot Towing is sure to bring a knowing smile to longtime fans of Jennifer Walters and Marvel Comics, since it's named after She-Hulk scribe Dan Slott. A prolific writer, Dan Slott is perhaps best known for the books he has written for Marvel Comics, which include The Amazing Spider-Man, The Fantastic Four, and She-Hulk. Slott's tenure on She-Hulk, which began with a 12-issue 2004 series and includes a run from 2005 to 2007, serves as a major inspiration for She-Hulk Attorney at Law. It was Slott who introduced the idea of Jennifer as a practicing lawyer for the superhero community, and he co-created supporting characters Mallory Book and Augustus Pug Puglisi. The retreat pays further tribute to the influential creator. Upon close inspection, the name tag on the tow truck driver's shirt appears to read Daniel or Dan. Wannabe superhero and consummate rich kid Leapfrog becomes She-Hulk's client in Episode 8, after his Luke Jacobson-designed rocket boosters malfunctioned during a mission. The She-Hulk version of Leapfrog is an amalgamation of two semi-obscure amphibian-themed Marvel Comics characters, Leapfrog and Frogman. The pair are actually father and son, Vincent and Eugene Petilio, with Vincent debuting as the villainous Leapfrog in Daredevil number 25. A small-time inventor and bank robber, Vincent eventually retired from his life of crime to raise his family. In Marvel Team-Up number 121, his son Eugene unearths his old costume, and with the codename Frogman, helps Spider-Man and Human Torch in their battle against Speed Demon. Thus begins one of the most unlikely superhero careers in Marvel history. Brandon Stanley plays Eugene Petilio in She-Hulk, though he now goes by his father's codename Leapfrog. While the Eugene in the comics is a bumbling but good-hearted hero, in the show he is a much more devious character. He kidnaps Luke Jacobson to make him a new supersuit, with Daredevil and She-Hulk crashing his lily pad hideout to bring him to justice. Episode 8 features a special guest appearance by Charlie Cox, reprising the role of lawyer Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil. Fans who remember Murdock from the 2015 Daredevil TV series may be surprised to see him sporting a dramatic new red and yellow costume. After unmasking Matt, Jennifer remarks,
"Well, it is very daring to use ketchup and mustard as your color scheme."
But the costume's unusual colors have deep significance to Matt Murdock's personal history, stretching back to his very first appearance in 1964's Daredevil number 1. Created by Stan Lee and Bill Everett, Daredevil wore a flashy yellow and red suit for the first 6 issues of his series, before artist Wallace Wood redesigned the costume in Daredevil number 7, giving the crime fighter the distinctive all-red look he is best known for today. The 2001 miniseries Daredevil Yellow by Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb delved into Matt's origins, explaining that his first suit was sewed together from the yellow and red boxing robe that belonged to his father, Battling Jack Murdock. Flashbacks in the Daredevil Season 1 episode Cut Man feature Jack Murdock wearing those colors as a nod to the comic. Jennifer breaks the fourth wall near the end of Episode 8, wondering why it's still continuing after her romantic night with Daredevil. She predicts that there will be a big twist leading up to the season finale, wondering,
Is it the kind of twist that's like, ooh, there's another Hulk, but this one's red?
Bruce Banner's Hulk has been a few different shades over the decades, but there was a different Red Hulk in the comics. Debuting in 2008's Hulk number 1, the identity of the Red Hulk was initially a mystery. He kept his intelligence when he transformed, making him a formidable foe for the Hulk. He's eventually revealed to be General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, transformed by the Intelligentsia think tank. The comics version of the group shares little more than a name with the version in She-Hulk. William Hurt played Thunderbolt Ross in the MCU, though his version of Ross never became Red Hulk on screen. He told the Wall Street Journal in 2015 that he would be willing to take a shot at the Crimson Titan. Sadly, Hurt died in 2022. So barring a recasting of Thunderbolt Ross, the odds of seeing a Red Hulk in the MCU have diminished. Talking to the audience about a different possible late episode twist, Jennifer asks,
Or like, I'm getting fridged.
The word fridged refers to an infamous story that led to a catch-all term for the mistreatment of women in comic books. In 1994, DC Comics published Green Lantern number 54, in which the supervillain Major Force attacks Green Lantern's girlfriend Alex DeWitt and kills her, stuffing her corpse in a refrigerator for Green Lantern to find later. Comic book writer Gail Simone recognized a trend in which female characters in superhero comics tended to be maimed, killed, or depowered at a disproportionate rate, and often only to further a male hero's storyline. She coined the term fridging to describe this phenomenon, composing a list of fridged female characters. The Women in Refrigerators website launched in 1999, continuing the conversation in the comic book community and sharing responses from creators that are still available to read. Simone wrote, "It occurred to me that it's not that healthy to be a female character in comics. If you demolish most of the characters girls like, then girls won't read comics. That's it."
Jennifer Walters, Esquire, lawyer, millennial.
With those words, the She-Hulk Attorney at Law season finally pays homage to the very first Hulk live-action series. The episode opens with a shot-by-shot recreation of the opening credits for the 1978 CBS series The Incredible Hulk. The stylized dream sequence intercuts new footage with scenes from the 1978 show and replaces Incredible Hulk actor Bill Bixby with Tatiana Maslany. The pitch-perfect recreation, which includes bell-bottoms, boxy computer terminals, and an omniscient narrator, also swaps out the CGI She-Hulk with a performer in green makeup. A tip of the hat to the iconic Lou Ferrigno. Best of all, Jennifer says the original show's immortal catchphrase,
Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Following in the footsteps of Ms. Marvel and Moon Knight, the She-Hulk series features hidden QR codes in every episode, which viewers can scan at home to access a free digital Marvel comic book relevant to the episode. In the pilot, a QR code can be seen on the wall of the bar Jennifer stumbles into after her accident, leading viewers to her first appearance in 1980's Savage She-Hulk #1. In Episode 2, a QR code on Jennifer's laptop screen leads to 2004 She-Hulk #1, which introduces the GLK&H firm. Episode 3 has a code below the U-screen player for Savage She-Hulk #2, which features lawyer Dennis Bukowski. The fourth code on Jennifer's dating profile is good for West Coast Avengers Annual #4, where She-Hulk is nearly made the bride of the evil god Set. Episode 5 features a QR code in the Boba Tea Shop for 2004 She-Hulk #10, Titania's origin story. A QR code on the crushed car in Episode 6 leads to 1989's West Coast Avengers #46, Mr. Immortal's comic debut. The food truck in Episode 7 has a QR code for 1963's Tales to Astonish #48, featuring guest star Porcupine. In Episode 8, a sign in front of Leapfrog's Lilypad hideout leads to a She-Hulk Daredevil team-up in 2014's She-Hulk #9. Finally, the code on the writer's room door in the season finale leads to 1993's sensational She-Hulk #50, where Jennifer breaks the fourth wall to argue with her creative team. She-Hulk has been breaking the fourth wall since the first episode, but in the season finale, she smashes it to pieces. Dissatisfied with the direction of the episode and the four-way fight scene between Todd Hulk, Abomination, Titania, and Bruce, Jennifer stops the episode cold. Bringing up the Disney Plus menu screen, she kicks her way into the docuseries Marvel Studios Assembled, effectively entering the real world. In a sequence packed with behind-the-scenes production art, toys, comics, and clips from previous MCU projects, She-Hulk enters Marvel Studios and interrogates her writer's room, complete with fictionalized versions of showrunner Jessica Gao and writer Zeb Wells. Hearing that her story has been decided by Kevin, She-Hulk fights her way to the head of Marvel Studios. Instead of meeting Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige, she meets Kevin, a giant AI brain with an advanced entertainment algorithm that appears to be wearing a baseball cap.
It stands for Knowledge Enhanced Visual Interconnectivity Nexus.
After Kevin asks She-Hulk to transform back into Jennifer off-screen, budget restraints, Jennifer gives a closing argument in favor of an ending not beholden to the unwritten rules of the superhero genre. This type of meta-humor was heavily employed in John Byrne's sensational She-Hulk run. In issue number 37, she tears through blank pages, berating Byrne for failing to provide a decent ending. Here, Jennifer wins over Kevin and gets a new ending. Jennifer's jolly green cousin Bruce Banner, listed as Smug Hulk on her phone, has been missing in action since the series' second episode. He was last seen on a spaceship preparing to take care of some important business on the planet Skaar. In Episode 9, Bruce returns to Earth and introduces his family to his half-alien, half-Hulk son, Skaar. Played by Will Dusner, Skaar was likely conceived in Skaar sometime between the events of Avengers Age of Ultron and Thor Ragnarok. Though Skaar's mother is not mentioned in She-Hulk, in the comics she's the warrior Kyra the Old Strong. In the Planet Hulk storyline, Hulk fell in love with Kyra, who later died in an explosion, but Kyra's son survived, making his debut in 2007's World War Hulk #5. Having rapidly aged to adulthood due to his alien hybrid DNA, Skaar is a formidable fighter with enhanced strength and stamina befitting a Hulk. He comes to Earth seeking revenge on his father, though the two eventually reconcile. While talking to Cinema Blend about the Skaarian spaceship in Episode 1, She-Hulk director Kat Coiro teased that it also lends itself to future projects. With the appearance of Skaar, viewers have a better idea of what those projects might be.